Isang malaya at ligtas na araw mga kababayan. Welcome to CyberChat and be a Cyber Guardian. Samahan niyo po kami dito sa TV Maria, streaming on its YouTube channel at sa Cyber Guardians PH YouTube channel and Facebook page. For the past 9 episodes, we have been discussing about cyber threats and cyber crimes affecting children and the youth. CyberChat will digress a bit from our usual topic. Today's episode is a celebration of the work and organizations formed by Sister Mary John Mananzan. Definitely, she is not your traditional religious nun in a habit. Sister MJ, as she is fondly called by her students, is an icon of Asian feminist theology liberation, an activist nun who works with a number of organizations dealing with gender issues and women concerns. I've been looking forward to today's episode on CyberChat, Kalinga, Noon at Ngayon. And joining us today is a guest co-host, a former student of Sister Mary John Mananzan at St. Scholastica's College. She's the co-founder and current president of the Rizal Academy for Innovation and Leadership, or TRAIL. Let us all welcome on CyberChat, Ms. Marisol Lopez. Good day, Ms. Marisol.
Good day, Kat, and good day, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this episode of CyberChat. I'm really excited to be here with you because our speaker for today is somebody I truly admire way back from my school days in St. Scholastica.
As advocates of Cyber Safe Philippines for child protection against online sexual abuse and exploitation and cyberbullying, let us draw inspiration from Sister MJ's work and values of passion, courage, and leadership in sustaining and advocacy.
And later on, our second guest speaker will also be a doctor of anthropology, so she will explain to us how the crime against women and children has really evolved, especially with the internet.
We will try to take a deeper look at the critical role of faith-based organizations in fighting online sexual abuse and exploitation of children and other forms of cyber threats.
That's right, Kat. We'll have the doctor of anthropologist later on, but for now, let's call up the Vice President of External Affairs of St. Scholastica's College, our very special guest for episode 10, Sister Mary John Mananzan.
Hello, Sister Mary John. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you too.
Sister, we are so happy to have you here with us. Perhaps you'd like to greet our viewers.
Okay, good afternoon, all those who are viewing this show. I hope you are all fine. Please be well. Huwag kayong sasagap ng virus.
Thank you, Sister.
Hello, Sister Mary John. It's so nice to see you again. I have so many fond memories of you from years back, being a scholastican from kindergarten up to high school. I really admire you a lot because of all of your advocacies, no? Sometimes you're also very controversial. But in any event, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
From your very quiet life in the convent, what led you to become an activist and doing all of this advocacy work, especially for women?
Okay. Actually, nag-umpisa ako doon sinatawag kong baptism of fire. Actually, nung magma-martial law, wala ako dito. Nasa Europe ako, nag-aaral ako. I was in Germany for 3 years and 3 years in Rome. And then, nung nag-martial law, umuwi na ako. And I was, as you said, nagtuturo lang ako sa Ateneo. Pero, nagkaroon ng what I call baptism of fire kasi meron kasi yung strike ng mga Latondenya strike. Tapos, may mga kakilala kong mga madre, sabi nila, tumawag sila sa akin ng gabi. Sabi, sister, punta tayo doon sa Latondenya kasi nag-i-strike ang mga workers. Bawal yon, baka hulihin sila at baka masaktan sila. Ay nako, doon ko na experience yung brutality ng Metrocom ang tawag nung araw. Tapos nakita na lang namin na nilagay lahat sila talagang pinagpupukpok sila, nilagay sila sa bus van. Nawala sila 6 buses, dinala sila sa kampo. Yun ang first experience ko na sabi ko, ay hindi yata pwede to na ganyan na lang ang kanyang paglalabag ng human rights. Tapos doon ko na-realize, too late na yung yung makikipaisa ka sa kanila pag-strike na. Dapat from the beginning, kanilang sweldo, etc. etc. So, yun ang tinatawag kong baptism of fire because right after that, talagang nakisali na ako sa tinatawag later on as Parliament of the Streets. So, doon ako nag-umpisa na maging aktibo sa mga solidarity para sa mga na-oppress, no?
Sister, ang ganda naman mapakinggan ng story about your baptism of fire. Sister, how did your experience in advocacy work affect your faith? And in turn po, how did your faith affect your commitment to advocacy work?
Simple lang naman ang logic ko Ganito. Christ had an option for the poor. I am supposed to be a follower of Christ. Then I should have also an option for the poor. Ngayon, pag yung poor na I have an option for ay ino-oppress, alam nga naman hindi ako tutulong sa kanila. Kaya actually, it began with the faith. Diba? Hindi yung advocacy muna, then how it influenced my faith. It's opposite. There was that faith that as Christ has an option for the poor, I should have an option for the poor kasi I'm the follower of Christ. Logical ba? Diba? So that is what led me into activism as they call it, no? But of course, sabi mo nga, after you have gone with the people, nabuksan talaga yung pag-iisip ko kasi noon ang dami kong absolute. Hindi pwede ito, hindi pwede yan. Kung hindi ka pwedeng hindi ka dapat mahipon ng mga komunista, mga ganon, di ba? Yan, mga demonyo yan, etc. Ang nangyayari doon, pag nandun ka sa poor, lahat ng tao nandun. Di mo naman sasabihin sa kanila, oy, mga red, alas kayo dyan, kasi ako na lang ang magtutulong sa poor. Ay, sino ka naman, ano? So, ang nangyari noon, nakasalamuhan mo lahat. Red, yellow, kung ano-anong kulay dyan. At doon nabuksan talaga ang aking mata, nabuksan ang aking kalooban, nasa lahat ng mga causes of human rights na talagang pag you are for the poor, kahit siyempre economically poor muna, but kung sino man yung na-oppress, dapat kasama ka. And of course, na-focus yung attention ko later on doon sa oppression of women. Kaya naging focus ko ngayon yung women.
And that's why I think if your focus is on women, in 1985, you gave birth to the Institute of Women's Studies, right? And what motivated you to do that?
No, what you mean? No, it began in 1975, already 76, because what came before the institute was Gabriela. I first, ang nangyari kasi, I was invited to, nung araw kasi political activist lang ako, anti-dictatorship, ganun lang. One day, I was invited to Venice by the World Council of Churches. Ngayon, doon narinig ko lahat yung mga oppression sa lahat ng mundo. Peru, ganyan-ganyan. Pero ang narinig ko doon, yung mga tungkol sa incest, tungkol sa violence against women, na noon wala akong masyadong consciousness. Pero nung narinig ko yung mga nagsasalita doon, sabi ko, oo nga naman pala. Nagrarally ako pag nalaman ko na isang military ginahasa yung isang political detainee. Pero kung ang tatay, ginahasa niya yung anak niya, sinong nagrarally? Wala. Di ba? Ay, sabi ko, mas worse pa yata yun na ginagahasa ng tatay yung anak, incest. So sabi ko, sa sarili ko, pag uwi ko sa Pilipinas, I will see to it that the women's question will be a part and parcel of our endeavor to have a new transformed society. Kasi kung kalahati ng society ay na-oppress ng kalahati, anong klaseng transformation 'yon? So it's not just a political, economic, social transformation. There has to be also a gender aspect to our wanting to have a totally what do you call it? Transformational society. So that's how I got into women. 1977 siguro yon. Later on na lang, matagal na bago yung Institute of Women's Studies naman. Naging chairperson nga ako ng Gabriela noon from 1986. By the way, before me there were two, si Tekla San Andres Siga at saka si Mamita Pardo de Tavera. But in 1986 I was elected Gabriela chairperson. Hanggang 2004 yon. So 18 years, di ba? Ngayon nung mga 10 taon na ako sa sa Gabriela, nakita ko, I'm Dean of College. Sabi ko, aba, nagtuturo ako ng mga kababaihan sa mga Islam areas, gano'n. Nagtuturo kami ng karapatan, kababaihan. How about itong mga estudyante ko sa Scholastica? Pasok sila, wala silang consciousness on women. Paglabas nila, wala pa rin. So I decided there should be a women's studies in Saints Co. Kaya 1985, nagkaroon kami ng first introduction to women's studies in Saints Co. Sa isang klase ng psychology major. Tapos nagustuhan lahat ng mga estudyante at mga teacher, kaya ginawa kong, kasi Dean of College ako eh. So ginawa kong obligatory yung women's studies. Magmula ngayon, walang makakagraduate sa Saints Co kung hindi makakakuha nitong 3-unit course on Introduction to Women's Studies. Ngayon naman, paano yung mga hindi nakakapasok sa Saints Co? Anong gagawin ko? Doon nag-umpisa ngayon ang idea ko na why not make an Institute of Women's Studies na ang magiging clients namin, yung mga women na wala sa Saints Co, yung mga grassroots women, iba-ibang klaseng status ng women. So yun, kaya I decided to have an Institute of Women's Studies. So ganon, that was already about 1988, 1987. Our flagship seminar is 1.5 months, nung araw 3 months yun. 1.5 months na tinatawag namin Intercultural Course for Women and Society. And that is not only for women in the Philippines, but from Asia and Pacific and Africa. They come here for 1.5 months and we give them a total comprehensive study on women. At pagbalik nila sa kanilang mga bansa, nag-uumpisa naman din sila ng women's movement. Di ba ganda? Tapos naisipan namin after 15 years siguro na tutok lang kami sa women, yung mga lalaki, paano yan? Sila nga yung perpetrator. So ang ginawa namin, naggawa naman kami ngayon ng module ng Gender Studies for Men. Okay?
Sister Mary John Manansan is a person with integrity. She does what is right even against all challenges and even if it is really hard to do so. Aside from this, she is empowered. She knows her rights and makes sure that she acts in order to claim these rights. She is also a person who is progressive. She doesn't just merely accept what is, but questions what is and makes sure to charter new ideas and opportunities for people. Lastly, she is a woman of God, and in everything that she does, she offers it up to the Lord for His greater glory. She has influenced me in many ways, as she was the president of St. Scholastica's College when I was still studying in St. Co, both in grade school and high school. Her integrity has also influenced me to have honor in what I do and dignity in what I do as a public servant.
Hi everyone, I am Sister Florine OSA. How do I know Sister Mary John or Sister MJ? She is passionate in everything she does. As a leader, she is decisive in making decisions, but she also listens a lot.
Sister Mary John, I met her even before Gabriela was set up. I met her as a consumer's advocate. She's very articulate. She's very matapang. At saka she's very principled.
She walked her talk and she showed that colegialas can do so much for the country and it is okay to be uncomfortable.
Kanyang generosity ay nagmumula sa kanyang puso. Kadalasan, nag-iisip tayo kung paano tayo makatulong sa ating kapwa. For Sister Mary John, nararamdaman niya kung ano yung kailangan ng kanyang kapwa.
Isa sa mga values na natutunan ko kay Mother Mary John at lagi niya itong idinidiin sa lahat ng kanyang mga nakakatrabaho, nakakasama, ay yung compassion o yung pagmamahal o pakikiisa sa isang nahihirapan o may pinagdadaanan. And related to that compassion na laging turo sa amin ni Mother Mary John ay yung respeto sa bawat isa, sapagkat Yun nga, hindi ba? Nakikita mo ang imahe ng Panginoon, the likeness of God in each one of us.
Wow, sister. Alam niyo po, I used to work with Gabriela in Congress when I was a working student in law school. That's why my respect and admiration for you runs deep, sister. Sister, can you cite, sister, the biggest challenges you encountered as co-founder and national chairperson of Gabriela for more than 2 decades? And how were you able to overcome these challenges, sister?
Okay, first of all, siyempre, walang pera. Hindi ba? Kaya, ang nangyari noon, ang nakakatuwa niyan kasi, marami namang support group, no? Sa ano pangalan nito, sa buong mundo, merong Gabriela, New York, gano'n. Ako, sa lahat ng mga naging chairperson ako, ang gusto kong mangyari, lagi yung organization dapat magkaroon ng opisina. Kasi kung meron na silang opisina of their own, kahit na mawalan pa sila ng funding, they will continue. So my great challenge is how to acquire or how to have a permanent office owned by Gabriela. Ngayon, ang nangyari, ang nakakatuwa kasi sa Finland, may tinatawag silang taxverke. That means to say, ang mga estudyante nila, every year, pumupunta sa factory. Pero hindi sila binabayaran. Ang ginagawa nila, yung dapat bayad sa estudyanteng nagtrabaho, ilalagay sa isang pondo, tapos they will choose any NGO all over the world na ibibigay nila yon. Can you imagine, napili ang Gabriela? No? Ay, mga in the 90s na yon. So I had to go there to get the award, the prize. No? So pumunta ako sa Helsinki, tapos binigyan kami nitong fund na ito, tapos in-interview. Ang dami ko ngang mga articles doon, hindi ko naman maintindihan kasi Finnish siya, di ba? Pero pagdating dito, I asked permission from them. Pwede ba yung nakuha naming premyo? Pwede ba na panghulog namin sa isang bahay? So yun ang naging ginagawa namin. At least bayad kami nung parang first payment. Tapos yung monthly payment namin na talaga namang ibabayad namin yan sa rent, naging rent to own. Kaya nagkaroon ng bahay ang Gabriela. Kaya kahit na nung nawala na ng funding, nung nagkaroon ng mga red tagging, ganyan, hindi na nag-i-stop ang Gabriela. Kasi at least meron kaming physical base, no? That is one of the first challenges na, ang other challenges kasi yung mga, yung threat, mga ganon. Merong threat sa amin, nasasabi nila, we will make Gabriela, illegal daw. They will, I think that was the time of, kung si GMA or the one before her, basta itong mga presidente na to, na tinitre. Kasi ang Gabriela kasi, although it is focused on women, it is put in a context. Alam mo, nung ginawa namin ang women's group in the Philippines, we saw to it na ang ating feminist movement in the Philippines dapat hindi anti-men. Kasi yun ang bahid na parang maling perception ng feminist ay anti-men ka. So unang-una sabi namin, we are not anti-men. Men are not our enemies. No? They are also victims of conditioning and socialization. And number 2, dapat itong women's cause should not be by itself hanging in the air. It should be in the context of social transformation. So ang nangyari noon, hindi lamang women's cause ang aming dinadala. Lahat ng issues of society, pag walang sweldo ang mga manggagawa, pag inoppress ang mga magsasaka, dinadala namin yan. Every March 8, na, di ba, International Women's Day yon, nagmamarcha ang mga kababaihan. Pero may dala-dala kaming issue palagi. Ito issue ng mga manggagawa, ito issue ng mga magsasaka, ito issue ng mga urban poor. Kaya threat din kami, in a way, nakikita na threat kami sa namumuno, di ba? Of course, ngayon, that is again what is being, natitretan na naman sila sa Gabriela na sabi nila, ako daw ay, just because I'm chairperson, dapat daw siguro ako yung high-ranking Communist Party member, mga ganun-ganon, no? So, nire-red tag ka na dahil doon. So, that's a challenge, no? That is very recent lang. Although, my goodness, I was no longer a Gabriela chairperson since 2004, di ba? But anyway, those are the challenges, no? Hindi lang yung economic, pati yung threat ng physical oppression, ay political oppression. Pero you take it in your stride na lang, di ba?
Thank you, sister.
And so, sister, with so much on your plate, and how do you sustain your passion for all of these advocacies that you believe in?
Alam mo kasi, sa Benedictine kasi meron kaming motto, ang pangalan ay Ora et Labora. Pray and work, no? So I think that this whole balance of contemplation, ang tawag nga, meron akong statement na I concocted, although borrowed from somewhere else. Sabi ko, a mystic is a prophet in contemplation, and a prophet is a mystic in action. So ibig sabihin nun, pag sa akin kasi, again, yung mga biases ng mga tao na kung ikaw ay aktivista, hindi ka na nagdadasal. Yung ganun ba? Ay, tingnan mo si Mary dyan, nasa kaya niyan palagi, hindi na siya madre. Kasi kung alam lang nila, 7 times kami nagdadasal, excuse me, morning, noon, and night. At hindi ako nag-absent. Hindi ko sasabihin, nandiyan ako sa kaya, kaya hindi ako makaka-attend ng Vespers. Hindi. Pag Vespers na uwi na ako, di ba?
Nice.
So if you ask me, it's because I have a balanced life of prayer and activism. Prayer and work. Kung wala yung prayer, walang nagdidilig ng iyong activism. At saka, that's why I'm not afraid eh. Bakit hindi ko natatakot? Because I'm with God. God is with me. Who can harm me? I meditate every day for 1 hour. I do shibashi every day. So, yun ang nakakapagbigay sa akin ng energy. Look, I am 82 years old. Dapat nandun na ako sa retirement house, di ba?
Sister, what lessons can you impart to advocates and advocacy organizations to continue their work given the setbacks and challenges that you're confronted with now?
Ang unang-una, dapat you understand what you are fighting for. Hindi yung basta, nandiyan sila kasasama lang ako. Intindihin mong mabuti. For example, itong Anti-Terrorist Act. Nakikita mo ba kung bakit siya dapat hindi ipinasa? Nakikita mo yung anti-constitutional na nandiyan? Dapat basahin mo yung act. Hindi lang basahin. Pag-aralan mo. Para alam mo, even sa mga estudyante namin na sinasabing, ay nako, ang mga aktivista siguro wala na silang academic excellence. Oh, excuse me, sabi ko, ang mga estudyante namin, pag pupunta sila sa rally, meron kaming discussion before. Ano ba yung issues na dadali nyo? After the rally, merong evaluation. So, number 1 yon. Dapat alam mo kung anong pinaglalaban mo. Kasi kung talagang alam mo, talagang full force ka dyan kaysa kung malabo. No? At saka number 2, okay, natatakot ka, pero kung ang pinaglalaban mo ay talagang nakikita mong para sa tao at nakakabuti. Ang tingin ko, imbis na matakot ka, kasi alam mo sa akin, ang takot ay nakakahawa. Pero ang nakita ko rin, courage is nakakahawa din. Pag nakakita akong matapang na tao, natatapangan din ako. Nagkakaroon ng courage. Yes, for me, that is the great lesson. If fear is infectious, so is courage. So, then do in spite of your fear, and you are going to get people to act with you because they get infected also. That is the great lesson that I have in activism.
Let's continue our conversation with Sister Mary John when we come back.
That I felt I understood Christ. You would think that you will have only spiritual experience in the church. I experienced spiritual enlightenment in political activities because people think that you can only have a spiritual experience or conversion in a holy place while you are praying. No, it's not. When you are living life to the full, that is when you really get spiritual enlightenment.
I would like to put it in a nutshell that Sister Mary John has an uncompromising love for country. She's very tough, outspoken, and courageous, especially when it comes to fighting for the rights of the weak and the underprivileged. I've known her for so many years, probably since the early 80s, and she counts decades of selfless work in forming women leaders in all fields to mobilize for a more just and humane society. I could only speak of my student days at St. Scholastica's College in Manila, when she have always encouraged me to aim to be a better version of myself and to use my talents and my resources to work for a better society. She inspired me to be more active, I'm not saying an activist, in her student council, and later to give back to society as I climbed the ranks in my professional career and to where I am right now. I would say that she was one of my inspirations when I started the Harry Foundation, so Hyundai could have a vehicle for promoting social change. That is why the Harry Foundation is now a critical element of Harry's operations. And St. Scholastica's College is one of our longtime partners in nation building.
Being a predominantly religious country, and then the help from faith-based organization is crucial in advancing your advocacies for women. Could you tell us more about the Office of Gender and Women Concerns?
Kasi alam niyo, merong tinatawag na Association of Major Religious Superiors in the Philippines, no? And for 4 years, I was the chairperson of the, tandem kami, yung may men, may women. But ang chairperson, dalawa, isang lalaki, isang babae. Now, meron kaming tinatawag na mission partners. So, iba-ibang mga ginagawa niya, mga task force for the orientation of church personnel, merong tungkol sa justice, peace, and integrity of creation. Ang isang parang desk nitong AMRSP, ito nga, Office of Women and Gender Concerns, no? Na ang tutok nito talaga ay mag-eduka ng mga primarily muna, ang gusto nilang edukahin ang mga religious sisters para maintindihan nila anong ibig sabihin ng woman question, ano yung mga different problems of women, paano maging solidarity with the women, at nagbibigay ito ng mga seminars sa lahat ng mga kumbento na mag-iimbita sa kanila, or kung hindi man nag-iimbita kami para bigyan ng pag-aaral, no? At saka meron kasi kaming parang program na inadapt na nag-umpisa sa Rome, yung tinatawag na Talita Cum. Actually, isang kaibigan ko, si Sister Estrel ng Salesian, siya yung inatasan doon sa English-speaking, meron din kasing Association of Superior Generals sa Rome. Inatasan siya na mag-found ng isang parang advocacy work na ang tinatawag ay Talita Cum, and it is really geared on protection of children, which is your advocacy, no? Children and women, but mostly children. So tinitingnan kung paano na yung bang human trafficking of women and children. Yun ang tinututukan nitong Talita Cum na to. Nagbibigay ng seminar yan sa lahat-lahat, nakikipag-ugnay sa mga different groups at talagang sumasali sila sa advocacy. So yung mga ganun ang ginagawa ng women and Office of Women and Gender Concern.
In your experience as a women and children's rights defender, how has women and children's abuse evolved in our country, sister?
Alam mo, actually, like for example, incest, matagal na yan eh. Noong panahon pa ng mga before the Spaniards pa siguro. Alam mo yan, there are so many things that are kept quiet, no? So it's not as if ngayon lang nangyayari yung wife beating at saka incest. Of course, tagal-tagal na yan, di ba? Only that there was a parang silence kasi nakakahiya, kasi ganito ganyan, sa pamilya naman yan. Ang siguro ang we owe to the women's movement, yung courage to say, mali ito. Dapat ma-stop natin to kahit na ito ay nasa kultura ng kung sino man. Kaya, ang importante, magkaroon ng pagpapaliwanag sa mga kababaihan na dapat you stand up for your right. At we are trying to educate nga both men and women na magbago sila ng consciousness. Kasi alam mo, sa lahat ng pagbabago, there are two things necessary. Change of consciousness and change of structure. Kasi kung may change of consciousness ka, wala namang change of structure, walang mangyayari. Diba? At wala namang di mangyayaring change of structure kung walang change of consciousness. Kaya ang ginagawa namin sa Institute of Women's Studies, sa Women Care Center, pag-usapan pa natin yon, at saka sa OWGC, minumulat namin yung tinatawag na conscientization para maliwanagan ang babae na hindi siya second-class citizen, may karapatan siya. At minumulat din natin yung lalaki na dapat you have to treat women as your equal kasi equal naman sila sa iyo.
Dahil po, sister, sa nangyayari ngayon na may human trafficking, may online sexual exploitation of children, in a way, parang meron ding form of modern-day slavery, no?
Yun na nga, kaya natuwa ako nung si Chichi ay nakipag-ugnay sa akin kasi yun ang bago, no? Kasi bago rin naman itong itong cyber thing. Pinakita niya nga sa akin yung isang video or something. At ako rin nakakita na ako ng gano'n na mismong parents ang nagpipimp sa kanilang mga anak, no? 'Di ba yung papalabasin nilang hubot-hubad. Tapos meron silang client doon sa television, sasabihin, "Oh, you come here, take off your shirt, take off your pants." And then sexual act sila, yung mga bata. Nandoon lang mga parents sila, isn't that worse? Ang parents mo mismo ang pimp, 'di ba? Meron I remember, meron nang naaresto, 'di ba? Na dalawa.
Madami na po.
Oo, madami na, no? Sasabihin nila, ay hindi naman natatouch yung aking anak. Ayun ang kanilang logic. Ikaw mismo ang nagtatouch, ikaw ang pinagpapatouch mo yung worse pa yun than a stranger touching your children. 'Di ba? Anong klaseng logic 'yun? No? Kaya natutuwa ako sa inyong advocacy. Kasi ito ngayon ang larangan. Ito ngayon ang labanan sa yung cyberbullying, cyber libel, cyber ganito, cyber ganyan. Ngayon naman cyber children's pornography.
Cyber trafficking.
Oo, diba? Dito ngayon ang parang arena. This is a new arena of struggle. At saka ngayon, everybody has this cellphone. They have access to so many things. So, at saka naman, hindi naman laging nakikita ng mga parents kung anong pinapanood ng mga bata, di ba? O ito nga, parents na, sila nga yung nagtitinda sa kanilang mga anak. Kaya itong media, talagang pervasive yan sa buong buhay natin ngayon. Wala na akong nakikitang tao na walang dala-dalang cellphone. Di ba? At hindi na TV kasi ang TV nandun ka pa. Ito nasa packet mo lang, nandiyan na. They can look at the pornography or whatever. They can abuse people, cyberbully, while they are carrying their cellphone, even kahit nasaan. Di ba? Kaya it's more challenging and more pervasive. Oo.
Sister, let us find out more from our second guest on how perpetrators of abuse and exploitation of women and children are now using cyberspace to facilitate their crimes when we come back.
When I think of Sister Mary John, three things stand out that characterize her and the Benedictine sisters, which translate to the quality of education they espouse at St. Scholastica's College. First, the importance of academic excellence, which Sister Mary John clearly lived out herself. As you know, she is a prolific author, and through the years, she has traveled, learned, and shared her knowledge and experiences through her writings, teachings, TV show, and talks. But it's not just academic excellence for intellectual pursuit that matters most to Sister Mary John. but the outward manifestation of this knowledge to relevant social issues born out of the Benedictine discipline of ora et labora, prayer and work. This discipline, which all the sisters and the Benedictine education espouse, is what I believe gave birth to such strong convictions in Sister Mary John to fight for justice for women, children, and many other advocacies. After all, when one has a relationship with God, who is the author of justice and righteousness, one cannot help but be compelled to fight for what is important for God: justice, mercy, truth, love, and life. Thirdly, I left St. Scholastica's College with an overarching mantra that in all things God may be glorified. Everything the Benedictine sisters do must lead to giving glory to God. I have taken these three traits personally to heart: academic excellence and excellence in everything, ora et labora, and all things God be glorified. These have become themselves seeds that God used to shape my personal leadership, professional growth, and convictions through the years. The passion and purpose that Sister Mary John and the Benedictine sisters have exemplified, born out of prayer and work, faith and action, has also reinforced my conviction to advocate for God-centered leadership in leadership through the years, that in all things God may be glorified.
The rapid development of information and communications technologies, or ICTs, and the advent of the Internet have introduced an entirely new dimension to the sexual exploitation of children. All forms of violence against children, including online sexual exploitation, are unacceptable and a direct assault to the inviolable, inherent dignity of every child. So what are the major threats to children online? Child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, depicts acts of sexual abuse material and or focusing on the genitalia of the child. Computer or digitally generated child sexual abuse material. These are materials with artificially created child representing in a sexual activity or in a sexualized manner. Online grooming for sexual purposes means communicating with a child over the internet with one intention. These are to establish a relationship with a child to facilitate either online or offline sexual contact. It also may include manipulation or incitement to take part in different forms of exploitative or abusive sexual activities, such as performing sexual acts in front of a webcam, or the production of child sexual abuse material or self-generated sexual materials. Sexting refers to the process by which someone intentionally shares sexually explicit messages, images, or self-generated sexualized images of themselves. There are also many cases of unwanted sexting. This refers to the non-consensual aspects of the activity, such as lack of consent in sharing or receiving sexually explicit photos or messages. Sexual extortion, also called sextortion, is the blackmailing of an adult or a child with the help of self-generated images of that person in order to extort sexual favors, money, or other benefits from him or under the threat of sharing the material beyond the consent of the depicted person. This particular form of sexual exploitation transcends national borders, as offenders can be located anywhere, even in a different country from their victims.
Our next guest is an associate professor from the Department of Speech, Communication, and Theater Arts, and is currently the coordinator of the UP Diliman Office of Anti-Sexual Harassment. She took her BA Speech and Drama and MA in Speech Communication from the DSCTA. She finished her PhD in Anthropology in UP Diliman. She is currently a member of the Philippine National Police Women and Children Protection Centers Advisory Council. And let us now welcome Dr. Teresa Paulo S. De Luna, or Dr. TP. Welcome, Dr. TP.
Thank you, Marisol and Kath. Thank you for inviting me here. Na-starstruck din ako kay Sister. Speechless, and marami akong natutunan kanina sa pakikinig sa kanya. Thank you for inviting me here. I hope I can contribute something dito sa ating talakayan.
It's such a pleasure to have you here with us on CyberChat, Dr. TP. CyberChat's past episodes mentioned that there were 45,000 cases of OSEC reported by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NICNIC, in 2017. And this grew to 600,000 by the end of 2018. As a doctor of anthropology, Dr. TP, who has tackled the issue of online spaces, how do you explain the phenomenon of online sexual abuse and exploitation of women and children?
That is a very timely question and issue. The battlefield has grown, no? And this battlefield is extended and expanded by the online space. So meron po tayong online space. This is the new battlefield. Actually, hindi lang siya new, kundi extension siya, expansion siya. Hindi naman nawala yung face-to-face, yung offline abuse. But it's worse now because dumami yung mga espasyo. And what's worse here is that this space, hindi lang siya isang espasyo. This space creates more spaces and other spaces wherein it's very difficult for us to navigate. So bukod sa being a battlefield, no, na nagiging battlefields because so many spaces are created, the challenge is these spaces, itong mga espasyong ito ay maaaring mawala at magkaroon uli. No? Ang nangyayari, you see that you just mentioned that back in 2017, 45,000 ang mga nabiktima, and it rose to, within a year, 600,000. So, I think it is because of the very nature of the technology and the spaces it created or spawned. These areas are easily created and abandoned. And then the perpetrators will again create more spaces. So, nandito yung walang physical na espasyo, kundi ito ay virtual. We call it virtual, cyber, and it makes it more complicated. These spaces also will create identities. No? It's very important to note that the spaces that we talked about, online spaces, create different identities or different selves. So yung isang tao, maaaring magkaroon ng iba't ibang identities. So it makes it parang napoprobe natin, no? Napoprobe natin yung identidad natin, no? Bilang mga individuals at ng ating mga kabataan, no? The women and children, the vulnerable. Maaari kasing halimbawa lamang sa Twitter. If you go on Twitter, that is a social media platform, you can have different accounts there with different personalities. So, pwede kang merong public account, meron kang private account, meron ding alter, merong rant account. So, apat na yon sa isang social media platform. What about the other platforms? So, you will see that the way that we communicate now and we live our lives, we navigate our lives, it's melded, no? With the offline and online. Yung offline natin, medyo sanay na tayo, no? Kung ano yung mga habitual, daily ongoings natin. Pero yung online natin, kakaiba siya. Kasi wala siyang umaga at gabi. Hindi yung umaga nagsa-start ang isang a day starts with morning and then it ends at night. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have a day and night. So, continue siya at maaaring ang isang individual ay simultaneous na naka-log on, no? doon sa iba't ibang mga espasyo. Hindi siya yung, eto muna, gagawin ko muna to, mag-game muna ako, tapos mag-chat ako, tapos ganito yung gagawin ko. Lahat yan sabay-sabay. You can just look at the window of your computer and then, yung aking laptop, makikita mo, may window sa ganito, may window sa gaming, may nagmo-Mobile Legend, etc., etc. So, napaka-komplikado. Now that we are going into a different way of life in this pandemic, I think it's more of a challenge to protect the vulnerable in terms of sexual exploitation and abuse.
Hindi natin namalayan, patapos na pala ang ating oras. Pero huwag po kayong mag-alala. Itutuloy naman natin ang ating napaka-inspiring na conversation with Dr. Titi and Sister Mary John Mananzan sa susunod na linggo sa pagpapatuloy ng Kalinga, Noon at Ngayon.